Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Mendoza, Doctor Speed Selling. This is Raging Verbalist number 231. Yay, 231. I'm glad that you're here. If you're here for the first time, welcome. If you've been here for a while, glad you're back. We come together every Friday on YouTube and Facebook, and the Facebook group is the Position to Win Book group. And with me, as always, to ask the tough questions, to stand in there for you, is the ever lovely Sandra. Sandra, welcome.
Hello, how are you doing?
Doing pretty good. My Bluetooth little problem, so I'm wearing the headphones. The green screen problem, it's technical stuff that's always going on, but we're gonna soldier on through, even though we've already done the Memorial Day, but we're soldiering on through on this one. So
That's right, that's right. All right, so this week we are talking about commercial real estate. So, what is the current state of commercial real estate?
well, I would have to say commercial real estate is kind of in a bad state. Everything is local, uh, but if you look at it, some of the commercial real estate is going down severely, and it's very interest rate sensitive. The example is that there was a building in San Francisco that was sold at some ridiculous 80, 90% off of what it was purchased for in 2016. So that's not a haircut. That's like an extraction of major limbs and bodies and stuff. So current commercial real estate, little on the rough side. And all I can tell you is it depends where you live. Big factor. It depends what kind of real estate it is, but it's rough out there. Pretty much a bloodbath.
And what were the ramifications of the pandemic on commercial real estate?
What happened was that it was pretty simple that if you had a business and you had a bunch of people, you had an office, right? I've worked years ago and it had an office. And if you wanted to have people work from their house, that was considered an odd thing, and you were forced to go in and forced to work. And I mean, I'm not talking like force, like gulag, Siberia kind of thing, but you had to go in. That's how it was expected. So you had people who would come together and commute in, and they would do that. And what the pandemic did was it just kind of blew that whole thing up, because we can't have everybody together. There's liability. What are we going to do? Very large companies that I was working with at the time, still am as customers, they did something they had never done, which they said to all of their staff, unless it's really important that you come together physically, it's stay at home. Here's your laptop. Here's a camera. Here's a microphone. If they actually went even that far, and learn how to use Zoom, which they actually didn't teach people, which is why we wrote the book. You know, remote work for a better world. So yeah, so what it did was it blew that whole thing up. Now what happened is, of course, is that once you blow something like that up, once you take that apart, the likelihood of somebody actually getting their head wrapped around and saying, you know what, I want to go back to an office, became a really hard thing to do. And even though lots of companies have said, if you don't show up, we're going to move you out and move you on. Well, there's a lot of labor mobility and flexibility. So, that's kind of just blew it all up. And we're still seeing that today. Vacancy rates are very high. In fact, in Portland, it's like 30%. And other parts nationwide, it's like over 11%, which is very high for office space.
And is this an ongoing threat to commercial real estate?
Whenever you have that kind of sea change and you move in a different direction, I think that what it does is that it means that whatever we thought was normal and we thought was going to last forever is now gone and it's over. And a little bit like, what's going to happen to physical media? Well, everybody's streaming, everybody's buying digitally, so it kind of goes away. Well, I think that in a lot of ways, commercial real estate is going to go through that same process. In fact, you're going to see faster and faster pipes out there. That means bigger bandwidth. For those of you trying to figure out what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about like, you know, bagpipes or something. But what's going to happen is that you're going to see that happen, and more people are going to say, you know what, I'm going to stay home. I'm not going to go back into a job. I'm going to be able to go do what I need to do. I can get, gig speeds or more, and away you go. So I think that it's going to be an ongoing trend that's going to continue to morph and continue to change.
And what about some of these corporate mandates that say you must come back to the office? Is that going to work?
I think for some cases it's going to work, but in a lot of ways it's not going to work. I know that there are lots of people who are doing the hybrid thing where they go in 3 days a week or 2 days a week or whatever it's going to be. And every one of those schemes that I've heard about seems to have lost some of the momentum. It really isn't going the way everybody thought it was going to go. And it's just the way it's going to be. So this is going to become the new normal. We'll see if they can actually force people to come in and say, well, yeah, I'm gonna make these people come in. And if they don't, well, guess what? They're going to be in serious trouble. The difficulty is that as you get away from now, certain jobs, just understand certain jobs, like if you're going to be have an assembly plant, you're building a car, you're building something like that, that's not going to be done remotely. But if you have people who are software customer service people, and you're going to have technology people, that's going to just happen. And my own experience when I helped a client later became a business partner develop a virtual corporation understanding is that for years and years we had to try to explain it to our large customers that, well, you don't want to pay for a space and neither do we. Well, now they're in the same boat as we are, which tells me that this trend is real. It's going to continue. And for the most part, we're just not going to see people uh, abide by those mandates. Now, some people will, but I suspect that that's not going to work out long term because everybody has gotten used to working remotely or more remotely, and that's going to continue to take place. And because of that, what you want to do is to prepare yourself just in case you have one of those bosses, those cranky bosses that says, you come back or else, well, maybe you ought to go get yourself this, which is most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. Just takes you 3 to 5 years to realize it. Position to Win. You go pick this book up at positiontowinbook.com, positiontowinbook.com. And also you can go to Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, wherever books are sold, you get a physical copy. And you can always go out and get it on iBooks. I know Apple's still doing it. Amazon Kindle, Barnes and Noble Nook. Also, if you want to learn how to work better remotely, remote works for a better world. And our belief is, my belief is that this is going to have a ongoing, sustained effect on all commercial real estate because let's face it, if you can work remotely and get things done, you're going to have a much larger pool of people to pull from. And it's just the way that it's going to be. All right, what's next? Sandra.
All right. Why are buildings still being built in this overcapacity market?
Well, real estate developers are going to always keep building buildings no matter what. And a good friend of mine, sadly, gone now, but a good friend of mine, David, would go build buildings and he would, talk about it because he was a developer and what developers do. And David told this great joke. I like it. Well, hopefully you will too. So David tells the joke that there are these three guys that are waiting to cash their lottery ticket and they're waiting for the window to open so they can, get their check. And so they're waiting and they're kind of being quiet. And the first guy just pipes up and says, you know, my wife and I have been blessed. And this lottery ticket is just proof, this winning lottery ticket is proof that, we should give back. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take this money, we're going to give it to the poor, we're going to distribute to those needy or needed, and we're going to do that. And the second guy says, well, you know what I'm going to do is that my wife and I've worked really hard. We've never traveled the world. We've always talked about it, dreamed about it. Now we're going to travel the world, see all the sights, go all the places, and we're going to enjoy ourselves because we deserve it. Third guy hasn't said a word. The two of them look at him and go, so what's your story? And the guy looks at him and goes, I'm going to develop real estate until I run out of money. Well, that's what real estate developers do. They develop real estate until they run out of money. And that's exactly what I think is happening. There's still a capacity issue, but markets even like Dallas, which is a hot market, they are building and probably overbuilding. And we're going to see where that's going to end. As long as somebody will fuel it with cash, they're going to still keep building this, even though there's probably not a lot of reason to do it.
And is all commercial real estate created equal?
It's not. In fact, office buildings are the ones that are being hit the hardest. Used to be those were the most stable. And they're hit because you had these businesses that said, we have to have an office, we have to have the staff, we have to have the team together, and we're going to do that. And you see company after company just breaking things apart and go, okay, here's what we've got going on. So we're going to see that go away. Now, what takes place in those spaces is going to be hard to understand right now. I mean, there's lots of talk about redevelopment or whatever it happens to be. But I can tell you, warehouse space, big business. Lots of other retail space, not so much, because you're going to see retail stores are going to get clobbered and clubbed to death by Amazon. So not all real estate is created equal. And that's the interesting thing about commercial real estate, which is different than residences, and in which that, there's lots of different classes and lots of different types.
And are there any areas that you see that are potential bright spots in the commercial real estate market?
It appears that Americans are a society of pack rats. So self-storage continues to grow and keeps getting bigger and bigger. I can tell you that. I can also tell you that it seems like there are more big box warehouses. I was just driving last week out to Palm Springs, and the place was they're just building them alongside the highway. So I think those are some bright spots. And probably mixed use is going to become more prevalent, and people are going to have to figure out how to do things differently. Once that gets figured out, that the utilization will happen. See, we've gone through lots of booms and busts in real estate. It's ironic because when people go out and do a real estate seminar, one of the biggest misnomers is, well, listen, now real estate, they're not making any more. Well, they may not be making any more, but there may be lack of demand. One of the companies I worked for, Mercury Computer Systems, years ago, was in an old woolen mill. And what happened is these old woolen mills had been there since I guess, 1700s, maybe even before, well, 1700s probably. And what they did was they refurbished them and they put high-tech companies in them. And, that was pretty amazing that they did that. I don't know where they are today, but that was kind of a reuse. I think we're going to see reuse over time because creative entrepreneurs will figure it out and move that along.
And how do entrepreneurs and business owners deal with this uncertain commercial real estate market?
Well, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, do we need a place that everybody congregates? And can we rent this space cheap enough? Can we do some of these things or not? And what do we actually need to do? I was involved in putting together a startup, and one of the board members wanted to be in charge of the architectural committee because as we were going to go out and raise money, Great Recession kind of stopped that from happening. But as we were about ready to raise money, he had visions of grandeur about building buildings and internally having waterfalls and all kinds of God knows what. And all I can tell you is that if you're an entrepreneur, you really have to think long and hard about spending a lot of dough buying some building, unless that's going to give you some kind of prestige that you're going to reap some benefit. Otherwise, my suggestion is find a way to do it as cheap as you can, sublet wherever is possible, and more importantly, always look for deals, because there are people who are stuck with real estate that they need to get off of their hands, because commercial real estate is going through a very tough patch. It is extremely interest sensitive. Interest rates are up. Everyone believes that interest rates have peaked and are going to be coming down. If I knew that exact answer, probably wouldn't be doing a show on YouTube. I would probably be doing something else. But all I can tell you is that unless interest rates moderate somewhat, right now money is too expensive for a lot of the real estate deals that are out there. Also, there's lots of empty space. So if you're an entrepreneur, you may be able to pick up a place and get a good deal on it. This is, in fact, the nature of how real estate turns over, and one group loses money, the next group makes money because they buy it right. But no matter what, you want to make sure that you're buying it right and not catching what's called a falling knife, which is the prices keep going down. And right now, there are lots of property that are going down in value, not up in value, because commercial real estate does not move in lockstep with residential real estate. totally different drivers, totally different methods of how this valuation works. So always keep that in mind. And with that, I hope that you make the right decision. Don't get yourself tied into too many long-term leases or buying something because you think this is going to be a great thing you're going to do. Make sure you do it for all the right reasons. Because if you do, then you're not going to be one of those victims of, it just takes 5 minutes to do the wrong thing. Well, it can happen in commercial real estate too. And with that, I'm John Paul Mendoza, Dr. Speed Selling. This has been the Raging Verbalist number 231. And for myself and the ever lovely Sandra, we'll see you next week. And hopefully you're going to be making a right decision and not getting stuck with an anchor that is called a piece of commercial real estate.